Charlotte City Council approved its $2.6 billion budget Monday night. The Federal Aviation Administration giving the airport more than $12 million in grant money.
Pushing for changes to the next GOP presidential debate.
And on the other side, Democrats are patiently awaiting a decision from Vice President Joe Biden. This is a live look right now from our Penguin Air news chopper. It is over a 7-vehicle crash.
You can see someone being loaded onto a stretcher right there. You can see crews are still getting people out of those vehicles.
Yeah, the freeway is still open, as you can see, and we take a wider shot there. A bit of sad news tonight, at least as far as I'm concerned. It's official. U.S. Airways is now American Airlines.
Yeah, the last U.S. Airways flight started.
Dakota Snavely was killed in a car crash as he headed to a water rescue last night. He was only 17 years old. Spectrum News reporter Courtney Davis has been at that fire department all day. Courtney, no doubt Dakota's fellow first responders are taking this hard. Good Monday evening to you. I'm Jonathan Lowe. We've got lots of news to get to you, but let's start with a quick check of tonight's forecast. Chief Meteorologist Jeff Crum standing by in the Weather Center. Jeff? All right, thank you, Jim and Jeff. They will be back in about 10 minutes with another check of your weather and your traffic. A sad day today, however, in Stanley County as the East Side Volunteer Fire Department lost one of their firefighters. Dakota Snavely was killed in a car crash as he headed to a water rescue last night. He was only 17 years old. Spectrum News reporter Courtney Davis has been at that fire department all day. Courtney, no doubt Dakota's fellow first responders are taking this hard. All right, thank you so much, Courtney. And of course, all of our condolences here at Spectrum News are with the East Side Fire Department. Other news we're following here at 5 o'clock. The search continues for the person who shot and killed a man in North Charlotte last night. Police say 54-year-old Adam Truesdale was found in a driveway on Jennings Street. That's just off LaSalle. He died at the hospital. If you have any information about what happened, you can call Crime Stoppers at 704-334-1600. The Rock Hill community in shock tonight after a 14-year-old girl was shot last night while walking with her sister. The Chester County Sheriff's Office says innocent bystander Jada Jones died in a gang-related drive-by shooting. 2 men already arrested and charged in connection with this teen's murder. Spectrum News reporter Alex Peterson is live in Chester County for us tonight. Alex, what do you have?
Spectrum News.
Thank you so much, Alex. We'll, of course, continue to follow updates in that case as they develop. Stay with Spectrum News tonight because we're going to be following developments out of the government center that could affect your wallet. A city council meeting just got underway where council members are expected to vote soon on the upcoming $2.6 billion budget proposal. It would raise taxes for the first time in 5 years. That would help pay for raises for Charlotte-Mecklenburg police officers, more funding for affordable housing, and a 1-cent tax hike. That tax increase equates to about $25 a year on a $250,000 home. Some of your service fees may also go up. Water and sewer, that's going to increase by nearly $2 a month. Stormwater fees also going up about 75 cents a month. You can expect a live report on that vote from the government center tonight in our 9 o'clock hour. The state NAACP says they're fighting a new proposal that would put the issue of voter ID on the ballot. Republican lawmakers filed a bill to add a constitutional amendment just last week and say the measure is meant to prevent voter fraud. Reverend Dr. T. Anthony Spearman, the president of the North Carolina chapter, says the proposal is discriminatory and makes it harder for all people to vote.
We will take our resistance.
That group says they plan to take legal action if necessary. Taking a look now at some major international news. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un are both in Singapore right now, and they're about to hold that historic summit. Omar Jimenez is in Washington with a preview. All right, it is 5:11. Time to get back over to Chief Meteorologist Jeff Crum for a look at the 3-day forecast. Jeff? This is a town that is going to see 2 minutes and 36 seconds of total darkness, but as you can see, it's nothing but blue sky. I've got one of the folks that have come here. You're set up and you're watching, waiting.
Yes, sir. I was up at 5:20 a.m.
We are at the peak of totality, I'm being told in my ear.
We are. It'll never happen again in my lifetime. Yep.
Bringing tears to your eyes.
Oh, it does. does. It does. It's cool, isn't it?
What we do know from CMPD, according to tweets that they just sent out, is that an officer was shot in the leg here in the parking lot. One of our photographers, Todd Baldwin, was sitting in the parking lot when this all unfolded. At what point did you wonder whether it was a police officer that had been shot?
I noticed it was a police officer that was shooting at someone.
The president expected to arrive here around 7 and take the stage that is just here behind me at Airport High School in West Columbia. You may hear the crowd, and I'm going to have my photographer pan. They are screaming every so often, "Go home, Jim," or "Fake news, Jim." The president here to support someone who was one of the very first elected officials to come out in support of Donald Trump when he was running for president. We are part of one of 5 buses that are convoying to the Capitol. Roughly 1 million students are going to be out of school today. How do you respond to that criticism?
I respond to that.
Just look at that. Clearly someone just wasn't prepared for how slippery it was in this neighborhood, because look here, as you can see, it fell all the way across this person's yard. The street sign part is here, and then if you look over this way, the top part, the actual light, just shattered. Well, Claudine, we're right here at the Sugar Creek Road exit in North Charlotte. Just behind me, you can see exactly what you were talking about. None of those high-mast light poles are working. The only thing leading the way are people's headlights. But if we just flip around to the other side of Sugar Creek Road here, you can see not only are these lights working, they're also using a new LED bulb that casts more light, surely making the difference for drivers. Well, thank you, Claudine. In the last 24 hours, we've learned that that officer was shot right here near the entrance to CMPD headquarters. And so officials, they can't completely cut off access to this building, but the public is going to be facing some big changes. They won't be able to get into this building day or night, as you can see from that sign there, unless they first buzz and are given access. By all accounts, there was no warning before the gunfire.
Nothing at all.
But once Spectrum News photographer Todd Baldwin heard it,
The first thing that crossed my mind was an ambush.
earlier in the evening Thursday, and operating on a hunch, officers may track down homicide and kidnapping suspect Jonathan Bennett.
So I was parked in this last parking spot right here. I had backed in so I could see this area where they bring the suspects in.
Around 10:45, CMPD says Bennett also drove into the CMPD headquarters parking lot.
I didn't realize the suspects had been parked right here on the other side of this bush.
Bennett, we're told, then got out and just started shooting at a group of officers standing in the lot. 3-year member of the force, Officer Casey Shue, shot in the leg.
I did not realize the officer had been hit. All I knew that the police officer here was shooting at somebody here.
Baldwin clearly recalls other officers rushing to get her medical attention.
A policeman like throwing things out of his car saying, "We've got to get her to the hospital. We have to get her to the hospital."
He also remembers the very spot where police eliminated the threat.
Suspect was laying about in this area right here.
Its officers and everyone in that area responded quickly.
Now, Charlotte Mayor Vi Lyles and others wanting to ensure this safe space remains that way.
As far as blocking off streets and access to the police department, that's not something that we're considering.
But following Thursday's chaos, officials are certainly reviewing police department safety measures.
To make you safe, the public, and also the officers working in that building safe at all times.
And you're taking a look there at one of several surveillance cameras that surround this parking lot and the CMPD headquarters. It's not clear if any of those caught what happened in this parking lot Thursday night. However, we do know there is body cam video, and we're told by officials that that could be released as soon, possibly, as next week. At CMPD headquarters in Uptown Charlotte, Jonathan Lowe, Spectrum News. Thousands of North Carolina teachers following in the footsteps of other states that have pushed for better teacher pay, an increase in per student funding. We are getting very close to the state capitol here in Raleigh after making the trip, leaving very early this morning. Thousands of Charlotte-Mecklenburg school teachers used their leave to come up here, but it wasn't just Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. Other districts across our area canceled classes today so that teachers could also take part in today's rally. One of them, Cheryl Virgil, in Gaston County.
Yes, sir. I'm in Gaston County, North Carolina. I'm a teacher assistant in an AU pre-K classroom.
You work with autistic kids, you were telling me.
Yes, sir. I've been working with autistic children for the last 14, 15 years.
And you came up by yourself?
I came up by myself. I left at 4 o'clock this morning to make sure that I got here safely.
And so it sounds like you were really dedicated to taking part into today. Why?
Because I love our children and I love education. And if it was not for education, I wouldn't be standing where I'm standing today. It is because of teachers that I have my degrees.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Certainly something that makes these folks emotional. They're excited, and they're just hoping they get a chance with their state legislator. We'll be following along to see what progress they get. We're live up in Raleigh. Jonathan Lowe, Spectrum News. Back to you. Well, Claudine, the program is expected to start at 6 o'clock, so just under an hour, and then the president expected to arrive here around 7 and take the stage that is just here behind me at Airport High School in West Columbia. You may hear the crowd, and I'm going to have my photographer pan. They are screaming every so often, "Go home, Jim," or "Fake news, Jim." They are referring to one of the national reporters, Jim Acosta from CNN, who is here. He is attempting to do some live reports. You may not be able to see him, but every once in a while, the entire gym will basically start in a big ruckus cheer saying again, "Go home, Jim," or "Fake news, Jim." So just wanted to explain what all that noise was about. Again, that program expected to start about 7. The president here to support someone who was one of the very first elected officials to come out in support of Donald Trump when he was running for president. And so now the president trying to return that favor to Governor Henry McMaster, who is facing a runoff tomorrow for the GOP nomination for South Carolina governor. And so Governor McMaster, right after the May primary, he did not secure 50% plus one majority. So that means he was going to face that runoff against Greenville businessman and native John Warren, who is also an Iraq War vet and Marine. So again, the president expected to take this stage behind me here about 7 o'clock. 2,000 people, I'm told, registered for tickets here. This is open and free to the public, but of course, this gym can only hold so many people. We'll be here keeping track of everything that happens with this rally and bring it to you live throughout the evening. Here in Columbia, Spectrum News, Claudine, back to you. Well, pretty much as scheduled and led by CMPD and the Highway Patrol, that procession arrived here at the Billy Graham Library around 3 o'clock this afternoon. You may see some of those vehicles still sitting here behind me. Reverend Graham's arrival here is just one of several events in the coming week aimed at giving America's pastor a proper farewell.
Obviously, Mr. Graham lived a long time and his health has been declining in recent years. So we had the luxury of time to plan this.
The black hearse that brought Reverend Graham home made a lap around the parking lot before slowly pulling up in front of waiting family members. Aside from the helicopters circling overhead, the moment felt somber and subdued. Inside that hearse, a simple plywood casket made by convicted murderers at Angola prison. It's the same kind of casket Billy Graham's wife, Ruth, was buried in. That whole arrival ceremony took about 10 minutes, and we watched as immediate family members who rode in the motorcade from Asheville, such as Billy Graham's children, Franklin and Ann Graham, got out of the black SUVs that trailed their father's hearse. After exchanging some hugs and kisses, grandsons and some other distant relatives served as pallbearers, escorting Reverend Graham's body into the library. I spoke with the man who married Reverend Graham's sister. Moments before that arrival, during our conversation, the dark clouds that had been flirting with us all day started to rain. Leighton Ford took that as a sign.
One of my first memories of Billy was in London, England, at the Great Wembley Stadium, and it poured every night, and it was 12 inches of rain some places, and people would come, he'd go on preaching, and people would come down there and stand there in that heavy rain. So maybe this is a kind of reminiscence of, he's preached in all kinds of weather as I have across the world, cold and hot. So just a reminder. And also reminds us, hey, we're not in control, are we?
And so just as soon as that interview concluded, the rain stopped, the clouds parted, and the sun came back out, believe it or not. As it relates to that public viewing that will be out here next week, People who are coming to pay their respects are advised to actually park over the Operation Christmas Child Processing Center because parking here, it is slim to none, and security, it is pretty tight. At the Billy Graham Library, Jonathan Lowe, Spectrum News.